Welcome to week 4 Rebuild Mark. I'm Mark Still. It has been a good week of training. I got two kind of easy-ish rides during the week. One had some intervals. Actually, both of them had some intervals. One had cadence intervals, one had power intervals. And then Saturday, I did a 3-hour ride for the first time in a long time, and I felt great. I had to keep it per Coach Kristen with 150 watt sealant, kind of the all-day pace, and I did that. Last year when I first rode 3 hours, my neck was knotted up. I was in terrible pain. So this is much better, big improvement. And then today I had a short little hour and a half ride. Now, yesterday on that 3-hour ride, I didn't do a great job fueling. So I think it could have been even better if I'd gotten the fuel right on things. I didn't have enough to eat before and didn't eat enough during the ride itself. I've got some products coming from Tailwind Nutrition, which I've never tried before, and I'm going to have the founders on later in April to talk about the company and how they got there and why they thought it was a good idea to build a nutrition company. Last week, I talked about the 47 millimeter wide Pathfinder tires I put on the bike. So when I did the first ride, I think I had the front around 35 and the back close to 38. That was way too much pressure for those tires. So on the longer ride yesterday, I dropped that down to 32 up front and about 35 in the back. Still felt like that was kind of too much pressure. So today I ran 30 up front, 32-ish in the back. It's kind of hard to get that granular on the pump I have, but something like that. And I didn't use any of the Future Shock all day long on the Specialized Diverge STR. I kept it locked out so I could feel more of the tire pressures. It's a really fun bike when you ride it that way too. It's snappy. But I think I can go a little bit lower. It's funny when you're riding, it kind of feels soft, but then you hit something and there's plenty of tire volume and almost feels like a thud. So I think I've got a couple more PSI to go. I'm going to keep edging that down. I will not go as low as I could. I think having a couple extra PSI, keeping that sidewall up a little bit could be something that helps. You want it nice and supple so it absorbs sharp things instead of getting punctured by sharp things. But I think you can go too low where it's just too much and the sidewall flattens out or squishes out too much. It can get cut even easier. But I definitely like the 47 millimeter tires. They do not feel slower. I don't even know if I could say maybe they're slower. I don't think they're slower. I think they roll real nice. I've quite enjoyed them. And I don't see going back down to 42s for Unbound. I could see around here being on 42s most time. There's nothing around here that would warrant in and of itself the 47 width. But for Unbound, for sure, I'm going to go with more tire volume. Now, I'm not a little guy. I'm about 215, 216 now. I really thought I'd drop more weight by now, but I'm feeling better on the bike, so I'm not really worried about it. But if you've got experience with larger tire volumes on gravel bikes, anywhere from 45s to 50s, let me know what tire pressures you've run on those tires. I'd love to know because it's I'm guessing at this point, but I'm going to put the work in and figure out a couple things. One, what are the right pressures, the best pressures to make sure I have the best chance of comfort and of avoiding flats as much as possible and traction on the steep, rocky climbs. But also, if I like the Pathfinders more than the Tracers, I think the Tracers are the way to go. I think having that grippier tread all the way across versus the Pathfinders slick down the middle makes more sense out in the dirt like that. Around here, Pathfinder's perfect. It's just I have to ride a lot of asphalt before I get to the dirt roads and the gravel. Even the gravel itself, our roughness is more washboards and ruts than it is big chunks of rock. So it makes a lot of sense here. I think in Kansas, the Tracer makes more sense, having the grippier tread across the front. Everybody that's in the Facebook groups and such about Unbound seems to be hung up on the Pathfinder. They really like that tire. I don't think it's a bad choice at all, but I will change tires before a race day. I will not go with these current 47 millimeter Specialized Pathfinder Pros because I want a fresh set of tires. I don't want to take a chance of something being stuck in there I just don't find. So I will go fresh tires. I will go black sidewalls because a lot of companies say that the tan sidewalls aren't as durable. But let me know what you've had experience with, if you got good luck with certain pressures. Now, if you're 150 pounds, maybe your experience is different than mine, but I'd still love to hear about it. And I got a great question last week about the mullet drivetrain that I'm running. Do I like having that setup? And I think the short answer is I wasn't sure before. I thought it would be a good idea, but this ride this week, this 3-hour ride, I got to find some steeper hills, and it is really nice to have that 50 in the back, and the gears that lead up to it. Just having a little more range in there has been quite helpful. So I like it. I am going to stick with it for Unbound. I may even go to a 38 up front. Currently I have a 40 tooth chainring up front. May go to a 38 just to have that extra spin up the steep climbs. I think, once you get 100 plus miles into it, that could really make a difference. I'll tell you, there is a downside to it. Now, it shifts fine. It's a little noisy when you get up in that 50, but the chain line's kind of extreme. So you sort of expect that, I think, sometimes. But the downside is with a cassette that wide, going from a 10 to a 50, the jumps get really big about halfway up. And so where you might be climbing a hill, need a little more gear, you downshift and you get a little more gear. Sometimes with that big jump, I'll put the gear ratio down there. It's a choice between grinding up a hill and spinning so fast that you don't want to be spinning that fast. And spinning too fast can be tough on those rocky climbs. It's hard to maintain the balance and the momentum that way. So you do kind of have to make a choice sometimes. Now, years and years ago, I used to think about the old road racers, people like Eddie Merckx, who had not a lot of gears back when they raced. They had to be efficient at 80 RPM and 70 RPM and 110 RPM. So I've always worked on that, and I'm out of practice, but I am working on that, which is why we had the cadence workout last week. So I think I'll find my way around it. I don't think it'll be that big a deal. But if I was fit, if I was the weight I'm supposed to be and the fitness I'm supposed to be, I think I'd go back to that 1044 cassette and just narrow those jumps so there's not such a big jump between the different gears when you get into those lower gears. But for now, I'm really happy to have the little tiny gears to get up the hills without kind of wearing myself out with that. So I'm going to stick with the mullet drivetrain. It's a great question. I appreciate the question. If you have questions about the bike, I'm riding the Specialized Diverge STR. I've got the SRAM Red / Eagle mullet group. Got the Roval CLX wheels on there, carbon wheels. Running the tires. You've heard me talk about the tires ad nauseum. I don't know. Let me know what you think. If you've got ideas about the gear, if you've got questions about the particular gear I'm riding, love to answer them. And remember, this is a group project. So let me know what you're doing and how I can support you in your efforts to get on the bike and get going, and follow along at Uphill Still on Strava, at Slow Guy on the Fast Ride on Instagram, and of course here on YouTube. And if you have questions you just don't want to ask in the comments, send me an email at mark@browntimemedia.com.